today you're going to fill in these guided notes, and you're going to put them in your notebook. These are going to go in part 4 on page 25. So the first one says, solving one-step equations, addition and subtraction. An equation is a math sentence that does contain an equal sign. That's what makes it be an equation. The goal of solving an equation is to find the variable. And we do this by isolating the variable. So please highlight or underline or circle the word isolate. And isolate means to get alone. So we want to find the value of the variable. We want to isolate that variable. And we're going to use inverse operations. So inverse operations are operations that undo each other. So take a moment and fill these in. Pause the video. So the first one, the inverse of addition, of course, is subtraction. The inverse of subtraction is addition. The inverse of multiplication is division. And the inverse of division is multiplication. So inverse means opposite. Okay, so make sure you've got all that filled in. So now you've got these notes to fill in. So before you solve any kind of an equation, you need to ask yourself, who's the variable? What's happening to it? Then do the opposite to both sides. So this is where most kids have a hard time, because they know if they look at it and they know that they've got their addition, they're just going to subtract, but they only subtract on one side. You have to make sure that you're doing this to both sides, because it's an equation, so you want it to be equal. So that's where you want to make sure that you are doing the opposite to both sides. So once again, if it's an addition problem, you are going to subtract from both sides. If it's a subtraction problem, you're going to add to both sides. If it's a multiplication problem, you are going to divide on both sides. And if it's a division problem, you are going to multiply on both sides. Opposite operations, once again, are called inverse operations. Additive inverses are numbers that will give you, so they are opposites, like 3, 2, and -2. Those are additive inverses. And then the additive inverses, when you put them together, give you the additive identity, which is 0, because anything plus 0 is itself. Multiplicative inverses. So if you have a fraction, 1/2, the multiplicative inverse is 2/1. Multiplicative inverses are equal to 1 when you multiply them. So the multiplicative inverse, when you multiply it, will give you the multiplicative identity. Okay. All right, so you've got some problems that look like this. You do not need to draw the boxes, but you do need to do what I'm about to do in the boxes. So who's the variable? X. What's happening to it? It's having 2 added to it. So what's the opposite of adding 2? I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. Whatever you're doing here in this problem, these will always cancel each other out. So sometimes you'll see people who just cross it out like this, because that always, always, always will cancel each other out. And then you just do your subtraction. So 10 less 2, of course, is 8. When we want to check this, we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to just take our 8 and put it back into the problem. And 8 plus 2, of course, is 10. 10 equals 10, so we've done that correctly. So question 2, who's the variable? y, what's happening to it? It's having 8 subtracted from it. So the opposite of subtracting 8 is to add 8. So do the opposite to both sides. So we add 8 here, and we add 8 here. Once we do that, we get that y is equal to 23. So we check it. 23 minus 8 equals 15. If that's true, which it is, we've done it correctly. Who's the variable? A. What's happening to it? 9 is being added to it. So I subtract 9, and I subtract 9. And I've got a positive 2 and a negative 9. So I get negative 7. So if I check it, negative 7 plus 2, or plus 9 rather, equals 2. And that's true because it's an addition problem, the signs don't match, so you ultimately wind up subtracting. Okay. All right, so what you're going to do now is you are going to be asking yourself these questions, and you're going to work through these problems on your own. For each question, you're going to, who's the variable, what's happening to it, do the opposite to both sides, subtract 7, subtract 7. This problem is set up a little differently right here, number 3. Just because the 83 is first, you're just going to do the same thing. Who's the variable? It's having 17 subtracted from it, so you're going to do the opposite to both sides. Some of your answers may be negative, so you're going to work through these. And then we've got some where now the numbers are rational numbers. Exact same thing. Who's the variable? N. What's happening to it? It's having 3.5 subtracted, added to it, so you're going to subtract 3.5 from both sides. You're going to subtract 1 6/10 from both sides. You're going to add 18 to both sides. You're going to add 56 to both sides, and so forth. So work through this, and then we're started on the next thing. Thank you.